This weekend in Detroit, the Orioles starting pitching looked even better, and arguably the offense looked even worse as the O's dropped the series to the Tigers. I'll recap all three games coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, September 16th, 2024, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles series loss to the Detroit Tigers this weekend as the O's dropped 2 of 3, falling 1-0 on Friday night, coming back to win it 4-2 on Saturday, but dropping the finale 4-2 on Sunday and losing 2 out of 3 and falling even further back in the American League East. I'll get you to what went right, what went wrong, and a shout out to some players for all three of those games. We'll talk about the great starts across the board. Zach Eflin was really good. Corbin Burnes was the best we've seen him in a while, and even Cade Povich showed a lot of great signs as well. The O's got some important contributors back with Jacob Webb and Heston Kjerstad being activated from the injured list. But the offense struggled and struggled and struggled. When you look at Friday night, maybe struggled more than they have all season. But we'll get to it all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use all lowercase Locked On MLB. That's code all lowercase Locked On MLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5 at Prize Picks. So we will go in order Friday to Sunday to recap an Orioles series loss. And it began with what was almost history made by the Detroit Tigers in the series opener on Friday night. The O's were coming off that heartbreaking walk-off loss to the Red Sox Wednesday, had the day off on Thursday as they traveled to Detroit. And the final score was Tigers 1 and Orioles 0 in game 1 on Friday night. So let's start with what went right on Friday. Well, that was Zach Eflin just continued to be awesome and continued to be one of, if not the best acquisition made by any team at this year's trade deadline. Eflin giving the Orioles 6 2/3 innings of 1-run ball on 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, and 1 home run on 100 pitches. He allowed just 5 hard hit balls, and the only blemish, second batter of the game. Kerry Carpenter takes a hanging curveball deep to right field for a solo shot to put the Tigers up 1-0. That was all the scoring for the entire game, but it was certainly the only scoring against Zach Eflin, who was really, really good. Now, you might notice the 3 strikeouts pretty low, tied for his lowest total with the Orioles. He'd been striking out more guys than he was with the Rays since the trade. But I think that's only just because his curveball was not as crisp as it's been recently, and that's been his strikeout pitch at times. He was very, very heavy on the cutter usage, and that's been his best pitch. He threw it almost 50% of the time, but it was really the only pitch that was truly missing bats for Eflin on Friday night. Most of the time with the O's, he's at least had a second pitch that he could get a swing and miss on. That really wasn't the case, but it didn't really matter because he was still like the peak version of annoying Zach Eflin, and that is annoying for opposing hitters to face. He throws a lot of strikes, a lot of balls on the corners. He will not walk you. I mean, the one walk, I think he was ahead 1-2, and it was 3 straight borderline pitches that could have gone either way. They were all called balls, and that was his only walk of the game. You can still count on one hand the amount of batters that Zach Eflin has walked in an Oriole uniform. But he goes out there, he gets soft grounders, he gets pop-ups, he gets lazy fly balls, and all of a sudden you look up and he's through 6 2/3 innings with 1 run on the board before he's coming out of the game. And it's just kind of masterful to watch. It is not the same thing as when Corbin Burnes really dominates or some of these other great pitchers. I mean, the Orioles didn't see Tarek Skubal this weekend, but he's probably going to win AL Cy Young. It's not the same thing as when he dominates with big strikeouts and big stuff. Eflin, just little paper cuts, death by 1,000 cuts. That is what it's like to face Zach Eflin. And it's a nice change of pace. And I just like the mix of stuff. I like how he throws strikes. It's refreshing every time he throws. And again, he didn't have his best stuff. He didn't have his most dominant stuff he's had as an Oriole, but he still did everything he could to give this offense every single chance they could possibly have on Friday. Unfortunately, what went wrong is that the Orioles almost got no hit in this game. And quite frankly, they almost got perfect games. The Orioles did not have a base runner through the first 7 innings against the Tigers pitchers on Friday night. The Tigers went with an opener. Bo Brisky, the right-hander, got the first 4 outs of this game before being removed. Then it was the lefty Brant Herter, who the Orioles knew they were going to see. It was pretty well known he was going to be like the follower, the bulk pitcher. We saw the Rays do this a good amount back in 2018, 2019, using the openers and then the follower and the bulk pitcher. And Brant Herter came in and he was just, I don't even want to call it nasty. Now, he was really good. He struck out 8 and he barely allowed any base runners. But I have never seen the Orioles look more uncomfortable at the plate than they did against Brant Herter. And this is a team that for 2+ months has really struggled and gone through a lot of ups and downs offensively. And they've had their frustrations. They've had their bad nights. In terms of just being uncomfortable at the plate, this was the most uncomfortable I have seen the O's. And Brant Herter, now to give him credit, he has thrown about 40 innings in the big leagues this year. He is a rookie. He's been really good. He's got like a 2.1 ERA in those 40 innings. He's been fantastic, a revelation for this Tigers pitching staff. But he's still a rookie, and he's still Brant Herter. And he's still just throwing 91-mile-per-hour sinkers in there with good sweepers. That's basically most of what the Orioles saw from the left-hander, and they had no chance. Just kind of diving out of sinkers, topping the ball, hitting soft grounders, swinging and missing through sweepers way off the plate. They couldn't see anything. And Herter is really deceptive from the left side. That's how he's able to get away with a 91-mile-per-hour sinker being as good as it's been, not just against the O's, but really against everyone he's faced this year. So the deception helps him, and you could tell how deceptive he was because the Orioles, it was just such an uncomfortable at bat. It looked like through the first 7 innings, they didn't take even one good swing against Brant Herter in this game. And now, luckily, that wasn't a perfect game. Adley Rutschman, 3-2 pitch from Herter. He lost a slider out of his hand, missed way outside. Rutschman drew a leadoff walk in the top of the 8th to break up the perfect game. Now, there was still a no-hitter going, but at the very least, they got that base runner. Herter came out. Our old friend Brennan Hanafy came in and finished off hitless through 8 innings, kept it a 1-0 game. And the Orioles, they were truly this close from a no-hitter. Tyler Holton came in the 9th, retired the first 2 batters. Gunnar Henderson got a hanging breaking ball, knocked it down the right field line into the corner for a 2-out triple to break up the no-hitter. And the funny part was, it was like the Orioles this whole time, because Eflin and the bullpen had pitched so well, it stayed a 1-0 game. So even though they were looking terrible at the plate and weren't getting any base runners, this is a team that hits home runs well. And you're like, there's still one swing from tying this game up. And then Henderson hits the triple with 2 outs in the 9th. You get Santander to the plate and you're just like, any type of luck could go the O's way here and they could tie this game up and make it a brand new ball game. Unfortunately, Santander struck out and it ended the game, but they were 1 out away from being no hit on a combination of Bo Brisky, Brant Herter, Brennan Hanafy, and Tyler Holton. And those are all guys who are kind of unknowns for some people, but have all pitched really well for the Tigers this season. One of the main reasons they are finding themselves right in the playoff push here in the American League wild card in the middle of September, playing some fantastic baseball. They've been the best team in the American League over the past month, and they showed it this weekend. But man, oh man, the O's were just not comfortable at all in those at-bats, and it just hurt even more because it was a 1-0 game. It was like one good swing, and the O's could have the lead right here, at least tie the game, and they just couldn't do anything. I mean, it kind of felt like, oh, okay, when they broke up the perfect game, and oh, big sigh of relief when they broke up the no-hitter with 2 outs in the 9th, but still, maybe the worst they've looked off. And again, there's been some bad games recently, maybe the worst offensively they have looked all season. But the shout out does go to that Orioles offense in the 9th inning. And there wasn't a lot to take from this game besides Zach Eflin, but Gunnar hitting the triple was nice to see. You break up the no-hitter. You obviously never want to get no hit, but to lead off that inning, I mean, Tyler Holton, minimum guys who have thrown 50 innings over the last 2 years, has the lowest ERA in the majors. He's been amazing for the Tigers over the past few seasons. Emmanuel Rivera led off the inning and he flew out to right field, but the swing he put on the ball and made some solid contact. This is how bad the O's were for the first 8 innings. It was a typical fly out to right, and that was the best swing the Orioles had put on any ball all night. Then Kobe Mayo comes up to pinch hit for Jackson Holliday to get the righty in there against the lefty Holton, and he goes 9 pitches battling, fouling balls off against Holton before he does strike out, looking on a really good backdoor cutter at the knees. But I thought Mayo looked way more comfortable at the plate than he has at times. And then Gunnar triples, and unfortunately Santander doesn't come through. He put a good swing on a ball, fouled it off, and then struck out on a 2-2 pitch to end the game. But at least there was a little bit of life shown in the ninth inning. Still not much, but a little bit. But man, you don't want to be wasting starts that good from Eflin. Games where you give up one run, you cannot be losing those games. And that's how bad and uncomfortable the O's were at the plate offensively on Friday night. But they had a chance to turn it around on Saturday. And it's not like the offense all exploded in game 2 of this series, but they looked better. They did enough, and they won the game Saturday to even up the series. I'll tell you how they did it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel because it is America's #1 sports book. But there's also another fun thing to talk about with FanDuel, and that is a fun offer they have here from now until September 22nd. You don't want to miss it. It is almost done. But from now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right. All you got to do is go on to FanDuel. You can watch all the NFL games you'd like for the next 3 weeks. That is a fantastic deal. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. And here's the nice part. You don't get thrown into this and you can't get out. You can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com today to download America's #1 sportsbook. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by the DK Law Group. When you need a law firm, do you want the legal runaround or would you rather have a no-nonsense approach? Well, you get the latter with the DK Law Group. The DK Law Group is a Maryland-based law firm who is redefining the legal process with their modern approach. They specialize in real estate law, estate planning, business law, and family law. And the DK Law Group is tech-savvy, they treat clients like family, and they focus on keeping your legal solutions simple. And they know that speed is key. The DK Law Group leverages technology to streamline the process to serve you better and faster. So contact DK Law Group today at dklawmd.com. And Locked On Orioles listeners can call today to schedule a free 30-minute consultation when you mention the tagline, Empowering Legacies. So it was a tough outing for the O's on Friday night, almost getting perfect gamed, almost getting no hit. They survived without that, but they did get shut out and lose. Luckily on Saturday, they were not shut out. And while it wasn't a banner offensive performance, they did enough to beat the Tigers 4-2 in game 2 of this series. And let's start with what went right from Saturday's game. And that is Corbin Burnes, for the first time in a little while, looking like Cy Young Corbin Burnes on the mound for the Orioles. We know how much he struggled in the month of August. We talked about it a lot on this podcast. He was fighting his command. He was fighting his stuff. He was trying to be a different pitcher. He was not the same guy he used to be. He was trying to work through all of that. And it ended up being a 7.36 ERA in 5 starts in the month of August. Well, since the calendar turned to September, it's been much better. 5 innings of 1-run ball against the White Sox, 6 innings of 2-run ball against the Rays, and then this one, his best start in a long, long time. And you could make the argument that Saturday night was Corbin Burnes' best start in an Oriole uniform. He goes 7 scoreless innings, allowing just 2 hits while striking out 7 and walking 1 on 97 pitches. It was his 30th start in an Oriole uniform, and the very first time with the O's, he has posted a scoreless start, posted a 0 in the run department the entire time he was out there. And it's kind of surprising that that's the case, considering Albert Suarez has done it 8 times. Tells you how big Suarez has been for the O's this season. But Corbin Burnes was awesome in this game. 1, not just 2 hits, but 1 hard hit ball. Only 1 Tiger hitter hit a ball with an exit velocity of 95 miles per hour or more against Corbin Burnes in 7 innings. That's how locked in he was. And it was heavy cutter. And we're used to seeing heavy cutter from Burnes, but this was 55 of 97 pitches. That's 57% cutter. And the velocity was a little bit down again. You know, he's been 95, 96, 97. he was more 93 to 95, touching 96 with the cutter. And that's something that he actually started to do a bit in the White Sox start 2 starts ago. And he had said it was because he thinks he can command it maybe a little better if he takes a mile per hour or two off of it. That was certainly the case on Saturday night. It really has been the case in these last 3 starts, in these starts in the month of September. And then you add in the ability to still, drop in the changeup, drop in the curveball, and drop in that slider when he needed it. And he ends up with 18 whiffs total. That's a 42% swing and miss rate for Burnes in this game. Been a long time since we've seen Corbin Burnes, who we know in general has cut down on the whiffs, tried to pitch more to soft contact to get deeper into games, throw more innings here in 2024. It's been a while since we've seen 18 whiffs in a game from Corbin Burnes, but that is what we got. And it wasn't just on the cutter where he had 7 of them. How about he threw 8 sliders in this game? That was his least used pitch. 6 of them got swings. 5 of those swings were swings and misses on the 6 swings against his slider. And the thing that really intrigued me was he still wasn't really able to throw it for a strike. That's why he only threw it 8 times. But those swings and misses basically were all chases out of the zone, which tells me it's moving a little bit better and a little bit tighter where guys aren't just like seeing it as a ball and saying that's never going to have a chance to be a strike. It's fooling them a little more than it has in a while, which is great. But the best part is you kind of look at the metrics of that slider, and he was throwing it about 83 to 85. He's been more 87, 88 with that slider this year. It was down on average almost 3 miles an hour on Saturday, and it broke a little bit more. That tells me maybe he's tossing in that sweeper. It was a pitch he added after he had kind of an up and down first half with the Brewers in 2023. He added the sweeper in the second half, and it helped him really dominate down the stretch for Milwaukee. It's a pitch that he said he was not going to throw this year. He basically hasn't thrown it all season. Maybe it's creeping back into the fold a little bit just to give another little wrinkle. Whatever it was, he slowed down the slider, and it was tremendous when he threw it. And not only that, the curveball gets 4 whiffs on 5 swings. The changeup, he was able to command a little bit better. And the other interesting thing was, didn't throw one sinker. 97 pitches, no sinkers for Burnes. Not like it was ever a heavily used pitch, but it was always in the arsenal, especially to jam it in on righties. Just never really had the command and kind of went away from it. So that's something else to watch. But overall, I mean, it was big time from Corbin Burnes. And here's the best thing. Like, Burnes was posting all over his Instagram account about everybody that posted his final line. You could tell how fired up he was. And even in the dugout, there's video of him. He comes in, he gets the handshake from Brandon Hyde and then from Freddie Gonzalez with his day being done. He just gives Gonzalez the biggest hug, almost picks him up and spins him around. He was fired up. He got that, classic Corbin Burnes, dotting a backdoor cutter on the outside corner for a strikeout to end the 7th, his final pitch of the day. He was fired up coming off the mound. He was fired up, so elated in the dugout. It just felt like seeing how he pitched and then seeing those scenes afterwards that he felt a sense of relief, a sense of something off his back, and maybe he really found something and something really clicked again in that start. I would not be surprised if this is what we see from Burnes again and again in what will most likely be these final 2, maybe 3 starts to finish off the regular season. But flipping it over to what went wrong on Saturday, well, that was Seranthony Dominguez making things a little bit interesting in the 9th. The Orioles entered the bottom of the 9th with a 4-0 lead, and they sent their closer, Dominguez, out there. Now, it wasn't a save situation, but Dominguez had not pitched since Wednesday, so he had 2 days off. And the Orioles had the impending day off coming up on Monday, so they knew, okay, even if we throw him here, and we get in a save situation again on Sunday, we can easily throw him Sunday because they'll have the built-in day off Monday and he won't have to throw 3 days in a row. So Hyde, we figured, okay, he wants to make sure, even with a 4-run lead, the O's are locking this down and getting what ended up being a huge W. Well, didn't start great, allowed a leadoff homer and allowed some loud contact where I thought 2 other balls that were hit to the warning track in center and right were also going to be home runs. Luckily, they both ended up being flyouts, but a couple more base runners. And he gave up 2 runs and he had runners on first and third with 2 outs. Luckily, got Zach McKinstry to ground out, who was representing the winning run, to end it with a 4-2 victory. But he was not super sharp. He was spraying the ball a little bit. But you also kind of felt like, okay, why was that not a Yennier Cano spot? He also hadn't pitched since Wednesday. It's a 4-run game in the 9th. Well, we learned after the game, Brandon Hyde told us that Yennier Cano was not available for Saturday night's game, and Daniel Allen, Tuck of the Banner, had also reported that Cano had not been available for a couple days, so he wasn't available to pitch in the game Friday, and that's why they went to Dominguez. Cano was unavailable on Saturday, and Hyde had to make sure they locked that thing down. It would have been interesting to see what they did if Dominguez continued to struggle, because it felt like, okay, if Dominguez gets any worse in this ninth, they'll probably go to Cano to seal it. Well, he was not available there. But that also probably tells us why Cano only threw 2 pitches and got 1 out late in that close game Wednesday night at Fenway Park. A lot of people were upset that Cano came in through 2 pitches to finish off the 8th in a tie game. And then the Orioles went to Dominguez in the 9th to keep it tied, and then went to Aiken going for the save in the 10th. And he gave up the walk-off home run to Tyler O'Neill. A lot of Orioles fans upset. Why didn't Cano throw more pitches? Why didn't he throw the 9th and Dominguez for the 10th? Remember, you as a fan, and also me as a fan, are always operating with less information than Brandon Hyde and the Orioles have when it comes to these pitching decisions. And here was a clear example of it. We did not know that Yennier Cano was sore, and Brandon Hyde called it just soreness for Yennier Cano, why he hasn't been available the past couple of days. Said he was hopeful that he could have been used Sunday. Really wasn't a spot to put him in the game anyway, and he did not pitch. But I'm sure there was some soreness he was dealing with, and that's why he was only available to get that 1 out on Wednesday as well. So hopefully he's fine. O's have another day off Monday. If they need him Tuesday night against the Giants, they can go to Cano. But that is certainly something here to monitor. And the shout out for the Orioles win on Saturday. The shout out goes to the O's having a big offensive inning for the first time in a couple of weeks here. Now, Cedric Mullins had an RBI single in the 3rd. It was nice to see the O's get a hit with a runner in scoring position. That opened up the scoring, put Baltimore up 1-0. And that was the only scoring until the 7th inning, when the O's started to rally. With 1 out, Emmanuel Rivera was hit by a pitch. Livan Soto doubled down the right field line. James McCann came through with a sac fly to make it 2-0. And then Gunnar Henderson scorching a liner over the right field wall for his 37th home run, a 2-run shot. And all of a sudden, it goes from 1-0 to 4-0, a 3-run 7th. And the Orioles get a little bit of breathing room. And that was huge, because although it was only 1 hit with a runner in scoring position in the inning, the 2-run shot from Gunnar, because there was a runner on second, McCann still came through with a sac fly with 2nd and 3rd and 1 out. And that's something the Orioles haven't even been doing, that and getting the 1-run home, even when they don't get a hit. So nice to see your backup catcher do that. And just a big inning overall, let the O's breathe. Like, they hadn't been able to breathe with a lead big enough to do so in a while. And really the shout out, I mean, it goes to the Orioles' whole offense for that big inning, but it also goes to Livan Soto. I mean, Soto got the start on Saturday, just his 2nd in an Oriole uniform at second base. He singles, he doubles, he had 2 hits in the game. He played, a fantastic defensive second base in that one, turned a couple of really, really good double plays. And that earned himself another start on Sunday as Jackson Holliday continues to struggle. And Soto played defense well again. He had another hit, a single in Sunday's game before being removed for a pinch hitter against a lefty late in the game. I'm not saying Livan Soto is going to Wally Pip Jackson Holliday. That's not going to happen. But now with Nick Maton DFA'd, and we'll get to that in a moment, Livan Soto is really that other second baseman on the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Holliday are maybe splitting time a little bit more as we go through this next homestand, just to see what happens. But Soto's small sample, but is swinging the bat better than Holliday and is playing just as good, if not better, defense at second base if he's helping the Orioles win. Same with Emmanuel Rivera, who continues to produce, and that's why Kobe Mayo's not playing third base regularly. Soto could do that to Holliday until Westberg and Arias come back. It's certainly possible, but that'll be definitely something to monitor. And then it's just cool that Gunnar continues to mash, right? Even when this rest of the Orioles offense around him is struggling, he gets a couple of hits and a walk. He had the triple on Friday. He drew a walk on Sunday. And again, the Orioles have not been good at the plate. And this weekend was real tough. But Gunnar, in 60 plate appearances in September, is still hitting .353 with an 1139 OPS. So he is still doing his job. Other guys got to pick it up, but that's still nice to know that you can count on that production from the Orioles' best player here in 2024. But they got the win Saturday and had a chance to win what would have been a crucial series on Sunday. And again, they pitched pretty well, but the offense was nowhere to be found, and the O's dropped the series Sunday. I'll tell you how it all went down coming up next to finish off the pod. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. How do you play it? Well, after you download the Prize Picks app, all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And every week in September on Prize Picks, you go to a football Sunday. If you just pick one Caleb Williams passing yard, it gets you one win on Prize Picks. That's basically a free W. Don't miss that deal because all you got to do is get 4 wins and you can win some money. You can win 100 times your money with the little as 4 correct picks. So if you got a free one with one Caleb Williams passing yard, get on it and get on that deal now. And you can do it by downloading the Prize Picks app today. And also, if you use code LOCKEDONMLB, you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That is code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. That's at Prize Picks. Run your game. So the O's and Tigers went into a rubber match on Sunday afternoon, actually 12:10 Eastern time start, earliest game of the day, and it didn't take long either. Game was done by 2:30, and unfortunately, it was done with an Orioles loss as the O's dropped the series, losing 4-2 to the Tigers on Sunday. With that loss, the Orioles now after the weekend, 84-66 on the season. There's kind of a lot of moving parts right now with the Orioles as we look at the standings, because it's not just trying to chase down the Yankees, which would be nice, of course, if they could do that. But there's other things aboard here. I mean, as I'm recording here on Sunday afternoon, the Yankees have a 5-2 lead in the 8th over the Red Sox. We're just going to assume they're going to wrap that thing up. And the Yankees are going to take 3 out of 4 from Boston, which means the Orioles are going to be 3 games back of New York heading into play on Monday. But there's also now teams behind them. There's the Royals that are just a couple of games back sneaking up. You got the Tigers sneaking up on them as well, the first team out of the playoffs. You're worrying about the Twins as well. So there's more other games to watch as the division is still in play. You know, it's 3 games with 12 games remaining, and you still have a 3-game series left against the Yankees. So you're certainly still in the division race, but you're now also keeping an eye on the Royals and the Twins and the Tigers and even the Mariners a little bit more than we were in the past. But they were still in the number 1 wildcard spot, just now 3 games back of the Yankees. Let's start with what went right for the Orioles in the loss on Sunday. That was Cade Povich, who continued to strike guys out. In this one, he goes 5 innings, does Povich, of 2-run ball. A Riley Green 2-run homer in the 3rd was the only runs he allowed. 2 runs on just 2 hits. He struck out 8 and walked 2 on 89 pitches. And it was really a thing of Cade Povich, just like Corbin Burnes, avoiding hard contact. Just 2 hard hit balls against Cade Povich in this game. And one was, unfortunately, the Riley Green 2-run homer. And quite frankly, it came with 2 outs in the 3rd. Povich earlier in that inning had thrown a 3-2 fastball that looked like it was right at the knees for a called strike 3, didn't get the call, made it a 1-out walk, and that extended the inning for Green to come to the plate. And he mashed that 2-run homer. Of course, Green had another solo homer in the 8th to extend the Tigers' lead as well. He had a huge day for Detroit. He's been having a huge season with an 850 OPS on the year. But I thought Povich was good, and he wasn't perfect, and it still can be tough to watch him at times. But he had 13 swings and misses, and it was pretty heavy fastball usage, 13 of 8, or 38, I should say, of 89 pitches. And he was moving the fastball around the zone. And although the velocity of it is 92, 93, maybe he'll touch a 94 if he really gears up, but he's more of a 92 guy to 93 guy on the year. But it's that deception on that fastball, the invisible. He hides it well. It has a little bit of rise and run, and that allows him to get outs with that pitch. And his changeup wasn't as good as it's been in the past, but 8 strikeouts was his second most of his season and of his career. Only better was a couple starts ago when he went 7 in the 3rd scoreless and struck out 10 against the White Sox. But I still like what he's doing. He's still missing bats with his stuff. He just still needs to move into that next category of trusting his stuff in the zone, because he only walked 2, but he was still spraying the ball around. He had a lot of 3-ball counts despite them not turning into walks. He had a lot of long innings pitch count wise because it was foul balls and balls just off the corner and missing badly with some. And some of it is just Cade Povich command issues. You know, he doesn't have pristine command. He never has in his amateur or professional baseball career. It's something that's followed him all the way up to the major leagues with the Orioles, but it also is some of not a fully 100% trusting all of his stuff in the zone. Because I've talked about it before. Povich has solid stuff, but he doesn't have elite stuff. He doesn't have any kind of elite pitches. He has more 4 to 5 big league level pitches, which that kitchen sink approach can really, really work for guys. And I think it will work over the long term for Cade Povich. But it takes a little more trust in your stuff when that is what you have and you don't have one really dominant go-to strikeout pitch, even when you are a guy like Povich who can miss bats well, as we saw with 8 strikeouts in 5 innings on Sunday. So he needs to trust his stuff a little more in the zone because it plays. But at the very least, and there's been some bad starts, he was not very good Monday night at Fenway, but he bounced back with this one. He's doing enough that he is still the number 5 starter in the rotation for now until if Grayson Rodriguez is able to return and be a starter in the regular season. There were some, talks of maybe a guy like Brandon Young from AAA knocking on the door to take that spot. Maybe Cole Irvin getting the spot back in the rotation. But it feels like for now, they're going to ride Cade Povich until then. And he's doing enough to at least keep that rotation spot. Now, what went wrong for the O's? It was another bad day from the Orioles offense. There haven't been a lot of extra base hits for the O's lately, so 3 doubles and a home run was certainly nice. And hey, it was cool to see Adley Rutschman homer in the 8th, a 2-run shot with the O's down 3-0, got them right back into the game. His first home run in almost a month. It was August 18th, the last time Adley left the yard, so cool to see him turn on a hanging breaking ball and hit it into the right field seats. He had a good series in Fenway. He had a solid series in Detroit. He reached base 3 times in the Sunday game. Adley's bat, I think, is coming back around after a prolonged slump, which is really, really good news for the Orioles as a whole, but still hasn't fixed them because even with Adley's bat coming around, the O's went 2-4 on this road trip in Boston, in Detroit. But I swear, and this is probably not exactly what happened, but it felt like the Orioles set some sort of record for ground balls hit to second base. Now, there were 22 balls in play that turned into outs with the Orioles at the plate in this game, and 10 of those 22 were ground balls to rookie second baseman Colt Keith. Now, that's probably not a major league record because it's not even 50%, but it felt like a lot. It felt like every single out was a grounder to second, and only a few of them were hit hard. Most of them were pretty routine ground balls, and what that tells you is the Orioles are not making good contact. They're not hitting the ball hard. They're not hitting the ball in the air. That combination will not lead to many hits, and that is what happened to the O's Sunday, and really what happened to the Orioles in this entire series. And the O's didn't strike out a whole lot, which was nice. I mean, Cater Montero, who threw 5 scoreless, he only struck out 1 batter. The Orioles only struck out 4 times in this game, and that's what you want to see. You want to see them put the ball in play. But this is a good example of the Orioles scoring 2 runs and only striking out 4 times, that just putting the ball in play is not enough. You need to make good contact. And again, the O's did a little bit of that as well. 10 hard hit balls as a team on Sunday. That's better than we've seen on average the last couple of weeks. So that's good. More solid contact. Some of it they got hits. Some of it became some unlucky outs. Either way, you need that consistent hard contact to turn into hits. Only 3 of those 10 hard hit balls ended up being hits for the Orioles. So there was some bad luck on Sunday. Certainly, they swung the bat better than they did on Friday. That's pretty clear. And you could argue that they swung it pretty similar to they did Saturday, just didn't get as good of results. But it just tells you again, yeah, strikeouts can be an issue. They certainly can. Not putting the ball in play is not going to do you any favors. But it's beyond that usually what team struggles are. And it's beyond that what's going on for the Orioles. You got to put the ball in play. You absolutely got to put the ball in play. That's true. But if you don't put the ball in play with hard contact and try to do damage, you're going to hit into a lot of ground outs to second. And that's what happened to the O's. And it's obviously frustrating to get a series where, pitching-wise, you throw the ball really well. The Orioles gave up 7 runs total in 3 games, and their starters combined to go 18 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 3 runs, 18 Ks, and 4 walks. That is a 1.45 ERA for the O's starters in Eflin, Burnes, and Povich this weekend. And if you just go the last time through the rotation, so that includes Tuesday night, Albert Suarez, and then Wednesday night, Dean Kramer for the Orioles in Boston, the Orioles are 2-3 in these 5 games. They scored 16 runs total as an offense, but they're starting pitching in those 5 games, 31 2/3 innings, 18 hits, 5 earned runs, 33 strikeouts, and 8 walks. That is a 1.42 combined ERA from your 5 starters the last time around the rotation, and you only win 2 of those 5 games. That is a glaring statistic among many others telling you how much the Orioles offense is struggling right now. And it is nice to know that the starting pitching is throwing the ball so well right now that if the O's offense can hit their way out of this, they'll have this great rotation waiting there to say, hey, we're only giving up 2-3 runs a game. If you can score 4 or 5 more consistently, we're back. We're putting on a winning streak. That's great to know. It's better than offense struggling, pitching struggling. It feels like everything's a disaster. The other parts of the O's game are going pretty well right now. The bullpen's been solid. The starting rotation's been great. So that's good to know that if they snap out of it, they'll have that. But every day we watch them, it feels like maybe they might take one step forward, but then immediately take a step back, and they're not feeling like they're any closer to actually breaking out of it, which is what they need to do. And again, they're still going to be a playoff team. They might not win the division at this point. That's looking unlikely, but they're going to be a playoff team. We'll see where that seeding falls in if they can get that home wild card series. But if the offense doesn't at least show some more life, it might be a quick exit like it was last year. And maybe the pitching will be better. It would hardly not be better in the postseason than it was last year. And if they're pitching this well down the stretch, maybe they can keep themselves in games like that and have a chance to win by scoring 2 or 3 or 4 runs. But something's got to give here. Something has to give. And the shout out for Sunday goes to Jacob Webb and Heston Kjerstad because they both returned from the injured list on Sunday. Jacob Webb, who's been out since August 4th with elbow inflammation, and Heston Kjerstad, who was initially concussed when he got hit in the head by a fastball from Clay Holmes back on July 12th, came back a week later, didn't look right, then went back on the injured list in early August. Both of them activated off the IL on Sunday. Cole Irvin and Nick Maton were both designated for assignment to make room on the roster. Those were two guys where pretty much the writing was on the wall. Whatever injured guys got back, they were going to be the first to go, so that was not surprising. Jacob Webb pitched 4 rehab outings for the Orioles in AA and AAA. There were some questions about his recovery and the timing and just some of his velocity, but the velo was more normal on his fastball on Sunday. Unfortunately, he allowed a 4-pitch walk with 2 outs, then a stolen base, then a single, and a 3rd run scored for the Tigers in the 6th. So he was not his sharpest, but it is huge for this Oriole bullpen to have Jacob Webb back. He can give you multiple innings. He's really good all around, but he's actually better against left-handed hitters as a right-handed pitcher, which makes him super, super useful, especially with the 3-batter minimum. And despite how good Matt Bowman has been, how good Birch Smith was initially, Smith has struggled recently. He's probably the next reliever to go when someone comes back. You can now use Jacob Webb in those big middle relief spots, and that makes the Oriole bullpen so much better. I know he gave up a run Sunday, but it's a little bit of rust pitching in a big league game for the first time in, over a month now for Webb. He will be a huge boost to this pen. And then Heston Kjerstad comes back, and the O's were like, hey, Heston, we're struggling offensively. You're the starting DH, and you're going to hit 4th in our lineup in your first game back on Sunday. And he had a couple of soft ground outs before he was removed for a pinch hitter against a left-hander later in the game. And Heston will certainly not save this struggling Orioles offense, but he could be a boost. I mean, he had a 769 OPS and 83 plate appearances this season. Wasn't really hitting the ball hard, but was doing kind of the opposite of some of the Orioles who hit the ball hard but aren't getting rewarded. He was kind of hitting the ball soft but was getting more rewarded than guys. And at the very least, the O's need some better luck with their offense. And maybe Heston Kjerstad, who had some good luck earlier this year before the injury, could provide some of that. Didn't happen Sunday. But at this point, with Ryan Mountcastle still out, Kjerstad's pretty much going to be your DH against right-handed starters every day, with O'Hearn playing first base. And they've kind of rotated through some DHs to get guys some rest, but it's going to be more consistent Heston Kjerstad. I'm not sure how much he'll play the field, probably not at all at Camden Yards, maybe when the O's go back on the road at Yankee Stadium in Minnesota, but those are really important games. I don't think you want Heston in the field, so he may not appear in the field for the rest of the season, but he'll get some serious time at DH to try and produce because not a lot of guys are doing that right now. So he's going to get a shot. Not sure he'll play much against lefties, but you see more righties. You'd like a DH there. And even when he does sit against left-handers, you're more than likely you're going to have Eloy Jimenez DHing against left-handers as he's done since he's come to Baltimore. Kjerstad gives you another left-handed bat off the bench. So when you face a left-handed starter and then the right-handed relievers come in late, Kjerstad can pinch hit for Jimenez or pinch hit for Emmanuel Rivera or pinch hit for, whomever it is that's in the game, pinch hit for Austin Slater, something like that to give you another weapon off the bench late to try and provide a big hit. That at the very least across the board with Webb and Kjerstad, the Orioles roster is better and in a better place than it was earlier this weekend with getting those 2 guys back. And hopefully it's 2 of many that the O's can get back from this long list of guys on the injured list who are trying to fight their way back before this 2024 season is over. But the Orioles couldn't fight their way back Sunday. They lose 4-2 and they drop the series to the Tigers. And again, AL East still in play, slipping away a little bit. They're just trying to hold on to this playoff seeding. Get healthy and get in. That is what I'm going to be saying every single episode pretty much. Get in, get healthy, and you have a chance to win because there's no super dominant team this year. This playoffs is going to be wide open. Get in, get healthy. That is what I'm saying for the Orioles at this point. But what helps with getting healthy is days off. And the Orioles have another one here on Monday as they travel back home before they begin a series with the San Francisco Giants that starts on Tuesday night. I'll be in attendance on Tuesday as well. But we will still have a Tuesday episode before that one. We've got a special guest coming on the show, an Orioles minor leaguer. That is the plan at this point. And a minor leaguer you should know well, and a guy who could have a chance to still help the Orioles at the big league level this season. So make sure to join us for tomorrow's episode for that fun interview. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.